County Board of Commissioners. Thank you all for coming out tonight in the absence of our chair. I'd like for you all to keep him in your thoughts. I will be officiating the meeting today. First on the order of agenda is the moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. A lot is going on in our community and our world, so if you all will just take a brief moment of silence. Thank you. You all stand. Recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we have the approval of agenda for today's meeting. Any commissioners would like to add or remove any items on the agenda? Is there a need for a closed session today?
Madam Chair, I do not. Is my understanding, unless any of the commissioners feel otherwise, that there's no matter on for closed session tonight, so that matter can be deleted from the agenda.
I'd entertain a motion to amend the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move to amend the agenda.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
I, Broadnax Taylor.
Aye.
Ayes have it. We will amend the agenda to remove item number 12, which was closed session. Next, we have our conflict of interest statement. In accordance with the rules of procedures adopted by this board in section 153A44 of the North Carolina General Statutes, it is the duty of every member present to vote on all matters coming before the board unless there is a conflict of interest as determined by the board or by law. Does any board member have a conflict of interest with respect to any agenda item coming before the board today? If so, please identify the conflict and the board will consider the matter.
No conflict.
No conflict, Broadnax Taylor.
No conflict.
No conflict, Faulkner. Next, we have our citizens' comments. I'll turn this over to our attorney. You will read the.
Madam Chair, I think I've received 3 comments, but they're regarding the public hearing. And if any citizens have general public comments, this is the time to make them, and their sign-up sheets to my right. Oh, I apologize. So citizens, if you've signed a sheet, when your name is called, please approach the podium. You'll have 5 minutes to address the board with your comments. If you have any questions of the board, you'll receive a subsequent response from the board or county staff. We ask that you please be respectful of the forum. And this is not a forum to be publicly critical of a commissioner or county staff. And Commissioner Faulkner has the authority to maintain the decorum of the meeting. Thank you. The first presenter I have is Ms. Gwendolyn Futrell.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Commissioners and citizens. My concern is, I have a question or concern about Rich Square Creasy Playground. I come before you to ask if there's any way possible that we can get a cover out there for the children and the parents to cover over. It's hot. It's gonna be hot when it gets summertime. And also some benches. There's nowhere to sit for the children. The parents have to be out there to monitor the children. There should be somewhere comfortable for the parents to sit. I understand that there's some forthcoming equipment. And also we'd like to know how soon can we get that? That was last summer and it's summer again. So I hope that our children will be able to get something else out there and benefit from it this summer. Thank you.
Mr. Alan Tashima.
Thank you. I'd like to read some comments here. This is just going to be some general comments, no questions unless you glean a question out of this. I would like to highlight a few thoughts for the board and the taxpayers of the county. It's interesting that the current fiscal year funding for FY 23-24 was an increase of 17% from the previous year of FY 22 to 23, which was an increase of 6% from the previous year, FY 2021 to 2022. I've asked previously a number of times to delineate what was the funding used for the justification for the increase. The current year funding was based on a tax rate of 0.835 per 100. You lowered the needs for the funding from FY 2024 to 2025 by approximately $2 million and lowered the tax rate to 0.83. What caused the drop? No discussion, no explanation. But you did cover more things in this year's coming budget than you did previously that I could annotate from looking at some of your line items. For example, you put in the new budget bonuses, a 2% merit, a 2% COLA for all employees except for law enforcement. They will receive an 8% merit, a 2% COLA. And you are also purchasing new software tool to support the work for building permits and also financial software to help with payroll. Where is that line item in the budget? Okay. Also, the county manager transmittal letter of the draft budget, it shows a $3 million shortfall. I did get an answer from the county manager. This is the answer. There is no funding short, and this is based upon the Excel spreadsheet that he put out on ending February 28, 2024, which showed a $3 million funding shortfall based upon what the revenue was going to be in at the end of February. He annotated that there is no funding shortfall, and the column labeled February 28, 2024, actual is used by specific departments only for the purpose of comparison and is not intended to give an overall fiscal year position for the entire government. I beg to differ. You use the word actual, that means that that's what you actually spent, okay? And I'd like to know where the funds used to cover that $3 million shortfall. Every time I ask for where's the covering of shortfalls, it always comes back that there is no funding shortfall. I've not received a satisfactory answer on where the county got the funding to buy the Burger King building on Route 46 near 95, approximately $377,000 in January of this year, or to pay for employees' increased medical fees about $9,000 a month for a total of about $110,000 in a year, starting in January 2024. This benefit is normally announced by contracts in October of the previous year. So why didn't the county know that the medical fees were going to go up before coming to the board in the January, February with a must fund either two options? One, county pays for everything, or there's a share between the employee and the county. It was voted upon that the county would pick up the entire share. Kind of iffy. Also, I brought up the specific things of cash on hand. I'm just going by memory since I haven't seen the final audit for ending in June 30th, 2023, that the county had approximately $21 million cash on hand. So if you aren't redirecting funds, then for the end of this coming year, June 30th, 2024, there should be approximately $21 million cash on hand. If it's less, then that means you use the cash on hand to fund the shortfall or overspent what was coming up for this year. I've asked before, what is the process on building the budget? And the answer was that each division submits their requirements. The county manager consolidates reviews and sends to the board for approval, which they always do. no pushback. When you build a budget, you always start from what I would call, by years of experience, that you start with must pays. Must pays are contracts, salaries, IT, water, electrical, anything that you can have a backward look at what's going on. But what it's done is that you consolidated everything into the budget. And so you have no idea what your must pays are. Bottom line, that's what you need the fund for. If you didn't get extra funding or taxing the taxpayers, you got to pay this. It's not the way it goes.
Mr. Tashima? Mr.
Um,
Tashima?
yeah.
Your time is up. Do you know approximately how much do you have to cover?
it's just,
Okay, we'll let you finish.
thank you. Thank you for your generosity.
Yes, sir.
So anyway, it gets you back to, it's all rolled into it. And then this year, four things came to the board last week. Was a new software to help the permits. I had no problem with that. There was also a new funding for software to help the financial director. No problem with that. But I've been working in the software industry, and there's an upfront cost and a tail. There's nothing in the budget, okay? What it was that the question was asked, where's the funding? The answer back was, it's in the current budget. And I'm going to be very facetious. It's like telling the commercial Prego sauce. It's in there, believe me. I've helped build budgets in the billions of dollars. And I've built budgets about $2 billion a year. And the federal government builds their budgets on 5 years. That's $10 billion in 5 years. Why the county takes so long to build the budget and use lessons learned. So thank you very much. And I hope something changes in the future, but I'm trying.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Tashima.
Ms. Erica D. Smith.
Good evening, Commissioners and County Manager. I stand before you as a very concerned citizen. I just want to express, it just appears that there is very little transparency when it comes to what's going on in the county. I'm glad that Mr. Tashima went before me and he highlighted some of the concerns with the budget. We heard over and over and over again that we brought in millions of dollars into this county. We heard it from elected officials, those who were running for re-election. They talked about how much the state legislature appropriated to Northampton County. And I'm going back 2 years. There was this $24 million number. And with that $24 million number, my question is, what is the county doing with the money? We know that with the budget appropriation starting in 2015, Northampton County receives millions of dollars from the sales tax redistribution. And in that redistribution, the only projects that can be funded are sewer and water infrastructure, or sewer and water, including other infrastructure like roads, K through 12 education, schools, and also community college. Since 2015, I have requested on at least 2 different occasions if the county could do a survey of those roads that are unpaved. I've been talking to Ms. Barbara, who is a resident in Rich Square, and it is appalling how neighbors fear for their lives because the roads are in such disrepair, being dirt roads, that EMS cannot even service if someone has a heart attack. And you know you have to get the healthcare within minutes if they're going to survive. I have spoken about Spring Garden Lane on numerous occasions. At least 2 commissioners have visited the area and seen what that dirt path looks like. In this county, I feel like you have a responsibility to provide for the economic development of its citizens. Part of that economic development includes providing more access. That access is broadband. We do everything leaning on digital. You can get a degree if you have the digital access. You can get health care if you have the digital access. And so I understand you're doing something about that. It's moving a lot slower than some of us want. But also included in that is infrastructure. I requested just to give us a survey of how many communities that have at least the statutory requirement of homes being 1 mile or more in length with at least a minimum of 10 homes. I've asked for a survey. I can't even get that. And as a tax-paying citizen, with my taxes going up, my monthly payment responsibility, when you look at my taxes and the tax evaluation, I'm paying $500 more per month starting in 2024 because of the reevaluation and, the interest rate had something to do with that. But if I'm paying more for where I'm living and still not getting the county services that I pay for because sanitation cannot get down the dirt path. So I have to drag my trash can every week, half a mile or more up the dirt path, just so I can have my trash dumped that I pay for. I can't even get mail. I have to get a post office box. That's an additional cost. I just want to share with you the frustration because there are citizens in this county who are supporting you. We would love to serve. But let me tell you what this board did. You appointed me to the Economic Development Board. You appointed me to Workforce Development. And then after I brought public comments to ask questions, to find out what's going on in this county, someone was appointed in my place and I was removed. Utterly disrespectful and unacceptable. Mr. Tashima was put in his application to the Economic Development Board. I put in mine. I received an email from the county clerk saying that I have been appointed to the board, have not been contacted since with an economic development meeting. I understand we have a new economic developer, and we're thankful for that. But at the same time, when is the work being done? You have citizens who really want to help out and they have valuable expertise. But we're not allowed and encouraged to do that. Mr. Tashima, you have sat on his application for 2 whole years. You've sat on mine for almost a year. And the tragedy is
Ms.
that the
Smith.
work is not getting done.
Ms.
I know
Smith.
I'm running over. Can you give me 30 more seconds?
Yes, ma'am.
Too much is being done in this county without the citizens knowing. We understand rezoning, but can we at least get notice? We don't know anything about an environmental impact study. And those are comments that maybe I will bring back and bring during the hearing. But with all that is going on, our citizens are having less trust in this board when we can't even get questions answered in a timely manner, and just to have you be transparent and not rubber stamp everything without having a discussion and making sure that we're informed about what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional public comment?
Those are all I have, Ms. Faulkner.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have Mr. Phillips, our county manager, to present fiscal year 2024, 2025 budget changes in this presentation. That's in our tab 8, which is the public hearing. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
I'm not going to take up a whole lot of your time because we didn't have any changes from the last meeting reports that was submitted on last budget work session. The changes that we talked about then was to incorporate the retirement rates, to adjust the retirement rates. There's been no additions since then, no request to adjust any amounts. So at this point, I'm leaving it open for you all. If you have something that you want me to add, we still have time to do that. Or if we can go ahead and put this budget ordinance on the website and schedule for the public hearing. And if we do that, we can schedule that for June 3rd. And that still gives us enough time. If you see that there's something that's missing, something that you desperately need in there, we can still get it, revise it and still have the enough time, because by statute it's supposed to be out there for 10 days. What I did give to you on tonight was familiar reports that you've seen before. You have a report. Well, maybe there's one that you didn't get before, which is basically just a cash flow statement showing the cash flows, the ins and outs. I wanted to include that for you on tonight so that you can see the major sources and uses of cash, dollars and percent. And what I did is compare this year's budget versus last year's budget, so that you can take your time, go through that. If you have any questions, you can email me or call me and we can discuss that. You also have the budget ordinance. And then you have the worksheet that's included. And again, the worksheet is a comparison of last year's budget to this year's request by department, and then what was approved by department. It all sums up into the ordinance. So unless you all have anything, suggestions for the next time, I'll just hold and we can give it a couple of days and then post it for public review. You have anything that I can add to it?
Mr. Phillips, I got one question. Today, and I know you saw it, I sent you a citizen's guide for understanding the budget.
Right.
And that was just something that I liked, that I saw, that I thought it would be budget friendly and help our citizens understand what we're doing. And I understand we have to go through the board and everybody has to approve it. So how can we get that? I'll get with your office to see what we need to do to get that in place, as far as implementing some kind of guide for our citizens or understanding the budget. So I'll email you tomorrow.
That's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips, for your presentation. We've heard your request. What was the initial timeline for that we had out for putting the ordinance out for the public comments?
We have
the
scheduled
original
June
time?
3rd for the public hearing.
I'm sorry,
June 3rd for the public hearing.
June 30th,
June 3rd.
3rd.
June 3rd for the public hearing, and then the adoption was scheduled for June 17th.
If it has to be out 10 days, then today would be basically the good start for
That's
that.
correct.
Board members, what's your pleasure? As it relates to moving forward with posting?
Make a motion, we move forward with posting budget for the public hearing. Second.
It's been motioned and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I, Broadnax Taylor.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carried. You have your marching orders.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have County Attorney McKellar for a proposed agreement of use of an animal crematorium.
Thank you. Board members, before you is a proposed contract with Halifax County for the use of their animal crematorium services. It's my understanding that the county needs to use these services as we do not have them. So the pertinent terms of the contract it is currently set up as a $350 per month flat fee charge that the county will be paying to Halifax. And we can use it as much or as little as needed for that initial charge. This is a one-year contract that can be renewed for additional one-year terms. And the price can be modified up or down upon the mutual agreement of both parties. I'm happy to answer any questions.
And this was initiated by which department? I know we've had the change in where our, with the health department and the sheriff's department were handling different components. So is this through the health department?
I don't have the answer. I don't know off the top of my head. Mr. Phillips or Ms. Robertson?
Animal control is the.
Animal control was
Animal control.
Animal
Okay.
control, yes.
No, it's kind of that tricky because it says between Halifax County Health Department, so it didn't say which department for us, so I was kind of curious. I've-
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay. We'll get there. We'll get there, sir. We'll get there, sir. So the price we have is $350 per month, and now I'm hearing that it's the sheriff's department. So is this in the sheriff's department's budget?
I can confirm that it is. Yes, it's in the budget,
And it's budgeted under which area?
in the animal control
So
department.
it's available under the animal control department.
Yes, ma'am.
It's line in the sheriff's department's budget.
That is correct.
Thank you, sir.
What is this?
We're gonna,
What are we doing?
we have time for public comments. And this is the time for the board, and I do have the ability to maintain the decorum. We cannot do the back and forth, just so that we maintain the decorum. Thank you, sir. I entertain a motion as it relates to the proposed agreement for use of animal crematorium between Halifax County Health Department and Northampton County, specifically our Animal Control Division within the Sheriff's Department.
So, Madam Chair, when we look at questions, I know we're looking, and so do we have an idea of how many animal carcasses that we in Northampton County, to Mr. Phillips, is that something that we can look at? When you say that warranted this, because this is a total new agreement, is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
That is correct.
Yes, sir, because I've been in many conversations with Peter. I've been in several conversations, and we have not utilized Halifax County in the past for a crematorium. So for my benefit, I would just like to ask that we look at how many animals are we talking about, because we're talking about $350 per month, and that would be regardless of the number of carcasses cremated. Is that correct?
That is correct, and I can get you that number.
So I think that would give us a benchmark as to, if it's 2 animals.
So what I'm hearing is that it's additional information needed before.
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right.
Yes, because again, the $350 per month is going to be regardless. And so if we're not cremating any animals, we pay $350.
So would this board like to table this discussion, this decision until the next board meeting to allow time for the sheriff's department to present more information before we can make this decision?
Madam Chair, I would make that in the form of a motion that we do that, because this is unknown territory without a number, and we can consult with the animal control personnel to find out what that possibility of that number is, since the cost is going to be $350 per month regardless.
What do we currently do?
I don't know.
That would be.
The last time we spoke, when we say, what do we currently do? When an animal from the shelter is deceased or when we have to take, is that what you're saying, Mr. Mark? We have not had that conversation in the past but we can definitely get with the animal control personnel to find out, because I've visited the shelter several times. But what have we been doing when a carcass is available? We can definitely find that out. Mr. Phillips, if you could, we'd employ you to find that information, sir.
Yes, I can, excuse me, I can get that information. It's not a significant amount. I remember talking with the sheriff about it as we went through the detail line items, but I will definitely get that information and forward it to you.
So at the next meeting, if we can have the approximate number that we are anticipating using based upon what we have done in the past, and what have we done in the past since this
Right.
is the first.
Well said, Madam Chair.
So I'll entertain a motion as it relates to tabling
There is a motion on the floor by Dr. Edwards.
but he has to have the date to June 3rd, if you will add the date.
Madam Chair, I move that we table this motion until our next meeting on June the 3rd so that we can get the information requested on A, number of carcasses, and B, what our current procedures are.
Thank you, sir.
Second,
It's been motioned and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
I, Broadnax Taylor.
Aye.
Ayes have it. This motion will be tabled until our next meeting, June 3rd. Next, we have our public hearing, and we do have 1, 2, 3. Are there any other additional citizens who would like to speak at the as it relates to the public hearing on a proposed amendments to the Northampton County zoning ordinance before I recess and go into the public? So there are no others that we need to wait on. Okay. At this time, I'll recess our general meeting of the Northampton County Board of Commissioners and enter into a public hearing on the proposed amendments to the Northampton County zoning ordinance relating to A, the regulation and monitoring of solar power generation facilities, and B, the addition of new high-density residential district. Attorney McKellar, is there anything in particular that you would like to mention? I know we'll have Mr. Bennett speak first.
I would suggest, Madam Chair, if Mr. Bennett could approach and review for the board and the citizens present the proposed changes. I will note for the record that these proposed changes were considered by the Northampton County Planning Board on
May 1st.
May the 1st, 2024. And they were giving a favorable recommendation with the exception of the proposed setback additions to the changes to the setback provisions, which I'll highlight or Mr. Bennett will highlight when he gets to those.
So I'll just do a quick reiteration of what we discussed at last week's board meeting. The zoning or the planning board met on May 1st and provided a favorable recommendation for the following items. The first is related to Section 36A of the zoning ordinance. And just to back up a little bit, the overall intent of this is to, over time, provide some additional oversight and monitoring for solar farms. It's a controversial issue, a fairly hot topic. So the Code Enforcement Office is taking a closer look at the solar farms as well as the zoning ordinance. So in Section 36A, the first paragraph there establishes minimum requirements for building and electrical permits for solar farms, as well as any structures that are placed on solar farms. Section 36B requires all active solar farms to also obtain a zoning permit and be inspected by the planning office at least once every 3 years. The purpose of this is to ensure that they maintain compliance with the ordinance, and that's all pieces of the ordinance here. Additional inspections will be conducted as necessary. So if we receive a plethora of complaints or code enforcement officers happen to ride by and notice that solar farms are not in compliance with the ordinance, then that gives us the right to inspect that property at that time. The 300-foot setback will remain. It will not be reduced to 100 feet. The next change is related to grass and the overall maintenance of the sites. Currently, it does not quantify at what point in time the code enforcement officers may issue a violation. So as such, we are recommending that any ground cover that exceeds 12 inches is a violation. Section 36I provides additional oversight for the decommissioning plan. So the purpose of the decommissioning plan is to ensure that these solar farms have the funds, sir.
Sorry, Caleb, you need to go to the next page,
Oh,
please.
yeah, I'm sorry. Not looking at the screen there. There you go. That section outlines information for the decommissioning plan, and the purpose of those is to ensure that these solar farms have funds or have allocated funds to decommission these sites in the event that they are inactive or pose any harms to citizens, the land, or Northampton County itself. So we're recommending additional oversight there. That oversight is then followed back, if you will keep scrolling, Caleb, to 36(2) -4 and 5, which will require decommissioning plans to be updated at least once every 5 years or upon ownership change. Also, decommissioning plans must now be recorded with the Register of Deeds office. This will ensure that any bonds, letters of credit, what have you, remain with the county or are active so that the county can then pursue those funds if necessary. That is all I have for solar farms. You have any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Prior to this ordinance, how have we handled solar farms in Northampton County in the past? And who was responsible for the care, the maintenance, and making sure they were kept with fidelity within certain guidelines? Prior to this, what department did that and who did that?
So the responsibility ultimately falls on the landowner. I've been serving as interim director for about 2 months, but from my understanding, the planning and zoning office has held the responsibility to make sure that the solar farms are in compliance with this ordinance.
Yeah.
Two.
Any questions? Or we open the floor to citizens?
I have one other topic. Yes, ma'am.
Good,
Good, okay.
good.
The second ordinance change is section 2, the high-density residential district. This district is primarily intended to accommodate single-family detached dwellings as well as multi-family dwellings in relatively high densities where public water and sewer are available. The ultimate purpose of this district here is for the building of the Jackson Workforce Housing Complex, which is located right down the street. This is not anything abnormal. This is recommended by our engineering team, who is working on the civil and the site design for the site. Nothing really a whole lot here, but the current ordinance does not allow for the workforce housing project. So we as such are recommending this additional classification. Questions? All I have.
It's time we will open the floor to public comments.
Miss Mishima, and forgive me, ma'am, you have to pronounce your name again for me. I apologize. Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I was trying my best to follow along with what he was saying. And it appears to me that the amount of investigation is not adequate enough. I live almost butting up against that solar farm. And I fear for the future of the land. And I'm gonna have to, is there any way that I can get a copy of what I saw up on the screen so that I can review that and look at that? Because my concern is, you know, the changing, number one, of the weather patterns, when you remove that much vegetation from an area, that, you know, you open the land wide open, and I'm butting right up against that solar farm. And while they were putting it under construction, I dealt with a lot of air quality from trees being burned, things like that. The air quality has been very, very poor. There are a number of animal and wildlife now that's inhabiting my area. I have about 70 acres there. And I'm seeing all kind of animals that I've not seen before. And I was told by, I think, the director there, when I went over to ask some questions, that they were doing 3,000 acres from where I live, over crossing it over to Virginia. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about what you said, that the landowners, was it, were responsible in checking out things with the land, but now that's supposed to change. Is that correct? Somebody else is supposed to be checking in on that. I think we need to do a little bit more research, and I need to be really clear on who's going to be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of that environment ongoing. So I'm still not satisfied with what I'm hearing. And I know I was here I believe it was last Monday, and the question was who was going to be responsible, and that we didn't have any say so about what a person puts on their land. And I beg to differ with that, because I tried to put a small storage type building on my land, and people were there right away to determine whether it was going to be taxed any further or not. So I'm just concerned about that. I don't think there's been enough concern, and there should be further investigation into the long-term effects of those solar farms. I was told by the gentleman who was responsible also that once that lease is up, that the structures are there and they have to be taken down by the owners of the property. That's a lot of metal. That's a lot of metal. And also the quality of the soil when those items are removed, if they're ever removed. I hope they don't end up like the satellite dishes that we had during cable, where they were just left there. So that's my concern. I'd like to see further research, and I'd like to have the information on what has already been done. Thank you.
Sylvia Vincent.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I want to start off with a few words that it's been on my mind for such a long time. And I just want to start with what I heard from our chairman last week. And I'm going to read it to you. After listening to the comments that was made last Monday night about the appearance of solar fields in our community, left me surprised and in disbelief. I've pondered all week long trying to figure Chairman Tyner's reasons for those remarks he made. To quote him, "People can put what they want on their land and nothing can be done about it." That statement is untrue and was wrong for him to say. My thoughts have led me to one thing: our board, and I say our board because he is the chairman, and I would think that he was speaking on your behalf and that you would not go the extra mile for us. It is a mess in the Voltaire community. It is a mess. We would like for you all to look out for us. The Board of Commissioners is the governing body for this county. The state legislation gives you that option to take care of its citizens in a fair and equitable way. We hope that you will protect this option and not lose it. Ordinances, moratoriums, resolutions, orders, zoning ordinances, and so on can be made to zone the land in the county that would benefit and protect all involved. And I'm just saying, not saying the animals, the landscape, but humans, we live there. We want to make sure that while we're living there, that we are protected, that we're not going to have to be worried about soil contamination, our wells being contaminated. Right now, we are not being treated fair by you. Okay, you are trying to bombard us with so many solar fields that makes us feel so unsafe and that you don't give a hill of beans about us. Why is the lawyer not stepping up to the plate, advising and helping you to do your job? Not producing the documents that I asked for lets us know that you're not doing anything to set guidelines. Don't put this community and others as well in the middle of a solar field industry. Get busy, put a plan in place to protect the health and the well-being of the citizens of this county, the environment, including wildlife, and the future. If you have these documents, all the studies that you should have done, share it with us. Let us see what you've done. These pages that I pulled off the internet that I requested from the planning board, I feel like, to me, they're just a formality. You know, you have it in your documents, you have it just to show, you know, okay, if there's an ordinance, if there's an audit done, okay, yeah, we have that, okay? But we are not getting the kind of results that would benefit us, okay? Now, if or when these energy companies or the farmers that own this land go bankrupt, or their heirs just walk away from the projects, and you are left with the mess, how are you going to pay for all of that corroded metal and glass to be removed from the ground? How are you paying for a lawsuit when someone's well water has been contaminated or some other issue comes up? They're not going to do it. You don't want to live in a community that is bombarded with solar fields. Why do you think we do? The buyer of the land or the person behind the purchasing of the land in our community was supposed to be in Raleigh, North Carolina, helping to make laws to protect citizens. Instead of doing that, he's out purchasing land, having you all to zone it for solar panels, and looking to fill his pockets without regards to the people and the environment around him. Cherry Tree Road, Old Grove Church Road, Highway 46, and other roads in the Voltaire community do not want any more solar fields. You have done enough. This is North Carolina General Statutes, Chapter 160D, Article 7. Zoning regulation. Zoning regulations shall be made in accordance with a comprehensive plan and shall be designed to promote the public health, safety, and general welfare. To that end, the regulations may address, among other things, the following public purposes: to provide adequate lighted air, to prevent the overcrowding of land, to avoid undue concentration of population, to lessen congestion in the streets, to secure safety from fire, panic, and dangers, to facilitate the efficient and adequate provision of transportation, water, sewage, schools, parks, and other public requirements, and to promote the health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. We are not seeing that in the Voltaire community. We are not seeing it. In closing, Chairman Tanner tried to compare a cornfield to a solar field. A cornfield is over in a season. The plants break down, mixes into the soil, and enriches it. Helps to make the next year's crop a better one. Solar panels are there for decades. The metal slowly corrodes, mixes with the soil, and causes issues that you cannot fix. I hope you hear us. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments.
Hans Moody.
You know, I'm not as prepared as Ms. Vincent was. I always shoot from the hip. Back in my dates may not be correct, but November 17th, 2020, y'all had a board meeting. And the information in that board meeting was that everyone was notified by certified letter that about the solar farms coming in the ordinance, changing of the ordinance. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. But it was stated that the certified letters were sent out. I don't think any of these people in here received them. So you made rules based on those lies. So as easily as you approve those ordinances, you should be able to reverse it because they were based on untruth. And this young man here, you said you can't dialogue with. Sometimes dialogue is good because then you don't make rules that adversely affect community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Those are all the public comments I have.
Now that we've heard the citizen comments, are there any additional comments from board members?
I think procedurally at this stage, you would close the public hearing and then the board can deliberate and
We'll
Can you
close
just-
the public hearing and well, we don't have to recess, just close the public hearing and resume their regular commissioner meeting. Are there any questions that board members have now after hearing the presentation from Mr. Bennett and our public comments?
I have one for Derek. Derek, is all of this new or just the things that were in red? Okay, so this other part in black was already been enforced. Because I don't believe some of these buffer plannings and all are like they show, just from what I've seen. I haven't taken a survey, but I've ride past a lot of them daily.
I think he's speaking to page 36E.
Yes, yes. And according to this, they're supposed to plant 10 feet tall evergreens closest to the fence and then a zone of other sizes from there. And I don't think I've been seeing that. I'll pay closer attention now that I see what it says.
I know at one point we did do a moratorium,
Yes.
and we are not going to make a decision tonight because you don't hear the comments and then rush and make a decision. So we will come back at our next board meeting to, I guess, determine our next steps. But was there a response to a question?
Ed's question.
I'm sorry. I said, were you coming forward?
Oh,
with a
as you
response or
said,
just being
just-
prepared?
just-
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
to Commissioner Martin's point, I've ridden through the Voltaire community. And when you talk about the buffers specifically, Commissioner Martin, that was a question that I had jotted down also, because when I look in the back of Gaston Baptist, and when you look, that's not a 10-foot buffer.
75 feet back.
And then the width. And so I did have questions as we prepared for this meeting as it related to that. And so to the commissioner's comment, I wanted to bring that up as well because they're not doing due diligence by what was stated in this proposal as we look at what they were going to do when they installed these buffers, because you can clearly see, because if there was a 10-foot buffer, I could not see the solar panels behind Gaston Baptist. And I'm using that as an example because I know this firsthand from riding the land.
That's why I asked if that part was already supposedly in effect.
it allegedly, it's supposed to be in effect, Commissioner Martin. No, it's not there.
That's one of the items that I have placed on the agenda of our planning and zoning officers or code enforcement officers. To place on our staff members to make sure that these solar farms are in compliance with the ordinance. It's going to take some time.
That's what I was going to say, Mr. Bennett.
We have we've started compiling a list of solar farms in the county.
Mhm.
It's taken extensively longer than anticipated. And then we'll go through each one of those and determine whether or not they are in compliance with this ordinance.
Yes, sir.
One question, it says all exterior sides, so basically the buffer line is supposed to encapsulate
That is correct.
a farm. So no matter whether you on the backside
Right.
or side or the front, it should have that 75 feet deep.
Correct.
Commissioner Edwards, did you have any further questions?
No, I just wanted to bring that, because again, from actually witnessing and then to Commissioner Martin's point about when he pointed out section 36 about the buffers.
Commissioner Broadnax Taylor?
Mr. Bennett, I have one question. Okay, so we got this new ordinance on solar farms. It seems like whatever happened prior to, were the citizens not notified or something happened because nothing done prior to the ordinance? Were things followed correctly? Meaning were citizens notified? Were people notified that these type of things would be near their home?
Thank you. I do not know the answer to that question.
Before, if I may, to the extent that I recall this, so these existing solar farm provisions were put into effect, they were enacted by the board on May the 1st of 2022. Prior to that, so that allowed solar farms to be a permitted use in agricultural residential districts. Prior to that enactment, so any solar farm facility or whatever, it would require a special use permit to be approved. And so that means it would go before the Board of Adjustment and then this board.
So you hit on what I was asking. Well, you've already told me you don't know, but I'm concerned about who handled that prior to.
It would have been the Planning and Zoning Department.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
I can't speak because I don't personally do this, but before they became permitted uses, adjoining landowners were supposed to get notice for these special use permits.
So with that, and I don't know if this is an ordinance piece or a procedural piece, but how do we guarantee that, wait. How do we guarantee that the citizens that are impacted are being served? So is there if the certified letters, there's a receipt that comes with it, so do they have to submit the copies of the certified letter notices, not just newspaper? But that's one way to say you're doing it. But if everyone doesn't get in the newspaper, the impacted citizens aren't guaranteed to be notified. So is there, like I said, I don't know the proper place for that to be, but is there any way that we can request that be a guaranteed component? That's not about whether or not we're approving this ordinance or not, but as a discussion, hearing that all citizens were not notified, what can we do moving forward? regardless of what we decide to do, that's something that we shouldn't have happen.
Yeah, we can go and ask the Board of Adjustment for maybe to better define how we can approach adjoining landowners.
Hmm.
I think a certified letter will help. It's no different than a published ad in the newspaper. It's no guarantee that it can.
The difference is
No.
I don't get the hard copy of the newspaper, and you have to pay with the online subscription to get access. So I only see what might be on the free. I don't get that, the notices.
I know in my line of work, I've had to apply for like a mining permit for a sand mine. And in that instance, I had to send certified letters to the adjacent landowners. And I had to send copies of the receipts with my application that proved I had notified landowners. So something like that should
Hmm.
have been,
And hearing that when you say, those forms should still exist because there should be records of who was notified. Should be. That's right. Because if it was done, it should be there. Hearing the concerns that adjacent landowners did not receive notice.
And although we're deciding on a zoning ordinance for the entire county, hearing concerns of an potential oversaturation of solar farms in a community, is there a, I know when we did the moratorium before, it was to get more information on maybe limiting in a community a percentage of acreage that could be dedicated to that within a certain mileage. Is that something that that you have seen in your work that another county may be doing? Because I know some other counties were really doing some serious investigating on this.
I've had conversations with other counties and they have tried to incorporate restrictions such as a maximum and minimum number of acreage. Unfortunately, it has not worked. The reports I've gotten back was that most solar farms end up circumventing those restrictions. In terms of moratoriums, Mr. McKellar, I'll allow you to address that 'cause that's beyond my.
Well, I mean, this board has done that before. You can certainly enact a solar farm moratorium that would put a halt to future developments. However, that moratorium is limited in duration. I don't recall off the top of my head how long it can be, but it is not long, and I don't want to be held to this, but I recall the last one was around 6 months. But while the board, it definitely has a finite period of time while the board explores what it wants to do.
And if I may, Commissioner, still make the recommendation. I know you mentioned to table this for further discussion, but the changes that we've outlined in the ordinance actually are tighter restrictions. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend to table the changes that we have made because we are asking for decommissioning plans to be updated. Right now, the county is being exposed because we don't know if those plans have been updated. So at least the changes that we have presented to you today increase the regulations and oversight.
Will that number of solar farms include the decommissioned solar farms as well? Mr. Bennett, will we have a listing of those solar farms
That have been
that are no
decommissioned.
long, yes,
Yes.
that have been
Yes.
decommissioned,
That's correct.
no longer active?
Correct. That is correct.
Can you give me 1 second?
So at the board meeting, it was recommended possibly to reduce that back from. So no change. It was scratch, it's just a scratch.
Because I do want to make sure that we do maintain the decorum of the meeting, But with that considered, we do want to hear you. So what I will do at this time is to open back up the public hearing so that that will give the opportunity for citizens who have more things you want to share to be able to do it within the order of the meeting. So at this time, if you're wanting to make a public comment and you have not filled out the form, if at this time you will fill that form out, if you have already filled out the form, but you want to add to your comment or add to your questions, if you will raise your hand and our county, attorney will recognize you to come back before, citizens who are out in the, virtual world can't hear you from the back. And we want to make sure that they hear your comments as well. And I do want to respect the fact that this is something that is impacting your communities and we want to hear from you. I just want to make sure we do it in order, if you all will understand why we're doing this, okay? So again, if you would like to add some more comments to what you have already said, or questions, if you will raise your hand. I see one hand raised. Is there someone else that I see two? And both have already filled out the form. So I'll turn this back over to our attorney to call forward those citizens.
Ms. Smith, Erica Smith?
People had questions, and I think the first one was clarified. It looked like in the red language, there was a recommendation to reduce that from 300 to 100, but I just wanted to ensure that that was a strike through, that you're going to stick with the original 300.
Yes.
Okay. And then the second question was, someone asked the question, if a landowner leased their property for a solar farm for 15 years, at the end of that lease, who is responsible for the decommissioning and the removal of the equipment?
I will.
Do the amendments to the guidelines speak to that?
Let Derek answer.
I can answer. We will follow up with you, Ms. Smith. It's quite simply the existing regulations protect the county and provide for that answer
So
already.
what I'm hearing is
Again,
it the landowner or?
says the
The
landowner,
landowner is responsible.
To notify the county.
There's currently decommissioning plans required.
Yeah.
Under the existing,
yeah, the landowner or tenant must notify the county when the site is abandoned.
they are posting bonds,
36.5.
letters of credit, or even cash for the full amount of the decommissioning costs.
Right.
Can I ask you to come back before the microphone? Thank you.
Correct.
So the landowner is responsible to provide notice that it's abandoned. In that notice, they have to pay a fee for the decommissioning.
So, Ms. Smith, before, under the current zoning ordinance that was approved in May of 2022, there are decommissioning plans that are required before the solar farm is even approved. So at the outset, those forms of bonding and actually we've had instances where the companies have, or the landowner has fronted a size cash that is held in trust by the county. But typically they're bonds or letters of credit that are held by the county and payable to the county in the event that these solar farms are abandoned.
Okay.
So that is in existence now.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
That answer your question then? Right, we have one more.
Ms. Vincent, Sylvia Vincent.
I think he just mentioned that there were some farms abandoned already. Is that what I heard?
Decommissioned.
Yeah, well, abandoned. So now, if they are abandoned, they have a decommission plan. Does it include them immediately moving the metal and the glass panels? What are you going to do about it? I mean, if they have been abandoned, who is going to pay for removing and prepping that soil again? Who's going to do that? I know it's going to be passed on to us. Now, I know it is, because you can't come out of your pockets and pay for it. But if they have been abandoned, who's going to take care of it? If a person abandons a house, they're done with it, they're done with it. when you abandon a house, who is going to take care of those who have been abandoned? Can you answer that, sir? Who's gonna pay for it? I just wanna know who's
I'll
gonna
take
pay
a stab at it if I may.
Who's gonna pay for it?
Under the existing solar farm ordinance. Now, this would be post May 2022. For all solar farms that were approved after May of 2021. Sorry, I stated the date. May 1st, 2022. That's when the decommissioning plan was put into effect. So, so pre-May 2022, that decommissioning plan, to my knowledge, was not in effect. I think that's right.
So, yeah,
Decommissioning plan, we're talking about the security to protect the county and the citizens in the event of an abandonment.
mhm,
Okay.
I understand.
So solar farms that were predated that, I do not know, and I do not believe decommissioning bonds were required.
So they're just out there.
But those that have a bond is in effect an insurance policy that would pay the cost to decommission if they went under and abandoned it. The bond company who holds that bond, just like your insurance company, if your house burns down, is responsible for paying that cost to decommission it.
Well, do you all have that?
In the existing, that's not red strike through, that's in the black, it says that on the removal of solar farm equipment and restoration, under number 2, it says decommissioning, which is what's currently in effect, includes removal of, but not limited to, solar panels, buildings, cabling, electrical components, and any other associated facilities below and above grade as described in the approved decommissioning plan. And so that's, and then for the purposes of this section, site restoration and having the site restored shall mean returning the site to its original condition prior to the development of the solar power generation facility. This includes but not limited to grading, seeding, et cetera. The part that is requested to be added in that component is the decommissioning plan shall be recorded by the applicant in the County Register of Deeds office. That was not in the prior approved plan. That's the part that's being requested by county staff to be added in, and the zoning board should be added in to that line.
I hear your, I hear it, but I can't see it being done. And I want to go now to where, most of us live, the Voltaire community, wherein, I think that you all had halted, you were supposed to have halted some of the work that was being done in that area. I think that's what I heard Chairman Tyner say. But I would like to let you know that Sun Energy is still doing some clearing. Okay, they're still doing some work. So they're not paying any attention to what you all say. Okay, now, they have some fields that they had started on, but because they were told to stop, those that were visible from the road that you could see, yeah, of course, they stopped that. But the one that they're doing now, you can go by there each day. There's a little bit of clearing at a time that they're doing. They're not listening to what you're saying. We cannot have you all allow them to put more solar panels in that area. You all should have done some environmental studies. How does it affect the watershed? There are streams, there are so many different types of animals that were roaming through those woods that they went in there already and cleared it. Commissioner Edwards, he can attest to what we have going on because he saw it. And I don't think that he was pleased at what he saw. And I just beg of you, do not allow them to put any more panels on 1211, 1212, and any more on 46 in the Voltaire community. It's too much. It's like they are not caring what it looks like. They're gonna change the whole lay of that land. They are working on it and they're gonna do their very best to continue it unless you all stop them. They're going to. And on Cherry Tree Road, they have already put up all of the posted stakes and everything. On the Oak Grove Church Road, the road is full of those stakes. It goes back for not just a few feet off the road, for miles. Hundreds and hundreds of acres of land that they're going to place solar panels on, and they have already placed them behind our church. And that wasn't even agricultural land, it was always forest. They have placed them all the way back, they're going to place them all the way back to the river. On the other side of the road, those panels have been placed all the way to the Virginia line, and then are going to come all the way across to the Old Grove Church Road. And I ask all of you all if you would come take a look to see what they're trying to do to the Voltaire community. Yeah, I thank you, Chairman Edwards, for coming and looking. And I hope that you will advocate for us because it's very serious. I don't want to leave my house and I got to pass solar panels on both sides of the road. Nobody else does either. Nobody else wants to see that. It's awful. It's like they have destroyed the habitats of so many, many animals. They run one of our friends away. She was afraid to even live in her house. She sold it. Enough is enough. I'm serious. Enough is enough. Thank you.
I would,
Yeah, just add, since he did his initial in the regular, just add that on his sheet.
Mr. Tashima?
From a lot of my comments, you understand that I'm a process generated person. So a request is, can you go back and delineate timeframes for what solar farm is policies are going to govern it? So, we've heard some gentlemen say that it started in 2017. So was there anything in writing from 2017 to 2020, 2022 or whatever that delineated what a solar farm is, what is done there and all that? And the same thing from the effective date for 2022, which we understand is 1 May, because that'll help people to see what you can do, what's been grandfathered and all that kind of stuff. So it's just to help you out for a process person, just put out those things. What are the documents? Because people take a look at it when they do a strikeout in red, black, it's very difficult to read. So start off, where's the first one? What was the effective date? When did it die? The next one, 1 May 2022 was approved, and so on and so forth. People can then understand what you were thinking about. Thank you.
I'll reconvene our regular Board of Commissioner meetings.
Yes.
Commissioners, after hearing additional comments, do you have any comments or questions for the board or county staff?
Madam Chair, I do. And so when you listen, at the concerns, and definitely, we hear the voice of the people. This board probably needs to seek the wisdom and the expert of a solar farm planner. Because I'm hearing the adverse effects from our citizens and the decommissioning, but the possibility, and we should seek this, of hiring an expert on solar farm planning to advise this board. I mean, when there are well contaminations, we seek guidance on how can we test your well. We've heard on this dais the components of the pollution of the hog farms and EPA water quality. And so we should definitely seek the planning advisement of a solar farm expert to advise this board so that we can make conscientious decisions.
Talk to your congressperson about subsidizing them. They aren't financially viable without government subsidies. They can't produce the electricity for a
Right.
competitive rate.
Yeah, I understand, definitely, Commissioner Martin. But I would just myself, and for this board, because we are the ones here, and I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying, Commissioner Martin. We're the ones being asked on this dais to make a decision.
So I would
So-
also like to ask.
And we
uh,
seek people for their expertise.
Yes.
And,
Okay.
and so in my profession, I am not an expert on solar panels.
Hearing Commissioner Edwards, and just asking for clarification on potential ways forward. If the board was to do a moratorium for the allotted time to allow for the securing of expert guidance and advice in the field of solar farm and its impact on communities, is how does that impact existing granted solar farm extensions or expansion? Is there any way that we can do anything to ensure that I don't know, so I'm
Right.
asking for legal advice here in this setting.
And I do understand, and also not only this board, but also our zoning and planning board. When you talk about, because before it comes to this board, it goes to the zoning and planning. And so that we're all involved in that conceptual conversation as it relates to the effects on when you say solar farms.
Yes.
Because before it comes to us, it goes to the zoning and planning committee.
We hear you. We do hear you.
Great point.
Can you answer?
But that was just a recommendation, Madam Chair, that I believe that this board should take into consideration.
Chairman Faulkner, I believe the question, Vice Chair Faulkner, you're the chair tonight.
Madam Chair. Yeah.
Madam Chair, I believe the question was as to if any additional regulations that this board would enact would be retroactive to existing.
Yes.
And I don't know the answer to that question without researching it further. I'm happy to prepare an answer and present it to the board whenever it so wishes. I'm happy to prepare an additional moratorium for this board to consider. Again, I am not a solar farm expert either. But I do know the process of implementing the moratorium.
Mhm.
But whether an additional new regulations can claw back and have a retroactive effect against existing solar farms, that's something that needs to be researched. And actually, the School of Government needs to be consulted on that.
Okay. I'm hearing that. And Mr. Bennett, you were already preparing for the county and the board the list of existing farms. If I would ask that on that document that you provide for us, that it includes the following: the initial approval date of the farm, if there were any expansions, subsequent expansions approved, the planned decommission date, or if it has been decommissioned already, to put that, and the date of the version of the ordinance that would impact that farm, that particular farm. If we cannot retro anything, what actually would they be held accountable for? But I hear I see what we say should happen, but I wanted to know what the penalties are if we find that there's not what's in the ordinance. What is the penalty for the landowner, the farm, whoever had the approval, if we find that it's not the setback and it's not the height that's there? I would be, I don't see it, so to speak, if it is. Where?
Well, a current zoning ordinance, I mean, it's enforced through violations and through essentially, if they don't voluntarily fix the matter, There's a violation procedure, and if it's not fixed, then the county can file lawsuits to have them fixed.
Because I'm hearing that there are potentially some violations. Okay. Want to make sure I'm legal. We said we were not going to vote on this matter tonight, but are there any motions as it relates to the hiring of the expert, or just a bringing back some potential quotes that we might want to ask our county staff to do? Would that be in order?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I do believe that, you know, after hearing our concerns, that we seek that advisement of an expert. And when you say, of course, that's budgeting, that's money. And so we look to our county manager to say, we should do this endeavor.
I think hearing the citizens, knowing the environmental impact, and we've had so many different things in our communities that have been environmental concerns for us. And if we can make sure that we are as informed as we can be by, and it's not to take away from the recommendation of the zoning board, but this
No,
this health and the viability of the land in our county as an agricultural county. I agree that I think we need to ensure we have this council, so to speak, with us. So if you can bring back, working with the county attorney, bring back some potential options for us. If you have it for the next board meeting, that would be awesome. And I would also ask our county attorney to bring back for our consideration a possible moratorium until we can get the advisement of experts.
Certainly.
Is there anything that I'm missing from board members, your desires for county staff direction? Commissioner Broadnax Taylor?
I was thinking, North Carolina State does a good job with solar farms. What is that other agency? The North Carolina Environmental Protection Agency?
Probably the DEQ.
DEQ.
Uh-huh. If we could contact someone there possibly to bring us, come in and work with us, I would definitely feel better, because this is not my area and I need to make it my area.
Commissioner Edwards,
No,
have any pieces that we have?
I've stated my my concerns and my desired endeavors.
Commissioner Martin,
I don't have.
and no additional? I think that that gives our county staff some way forward. And of course, as we mentioned before, we would not make a motion tonight to approve the ordinance. But I do want to ask the question. The items that were being presented thus far were a stricter ordinance. If we did anything with this ordinance tonight or first Monday meeting, would there be anything that prohibits us from moving forward with additional changes?
My only thought on that, if additional changes are proposed, they would have to go back before the planning board and then back before this board. So yes, you would start over. Now, the
But if
current
we were doing
changes have gone through.
moratorium, would that give us time to do those additional?
Sure, yes.
Madam Chair, may I also recommend let's not forget about the proposed change to section 2, which is the high density
Right.
residential district. that is specific to the Jack Force Workforce Housing Project. That project is dependent or contingent on a grant from HUD. We are on the timeline to complete that project. So I ask the board to consider that as well.
Agenda. So we had two actual
Yes.
components to the public hearing. We only received public comments on one component of the public hearing. The board's desire to separate the two parts and vote on the second part as it relates to the high density, I got to get my wording, high density residential district part of the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, Madam Chair, after, reading, and when you look at the, I do believe we should separate, because this is talking about the component as our economic developer stated, residential district with single family dwellings, and with the proposal that the units are located right there by Central Elementary School. So I do believe that component of the separation is appropriate.
I would entertain a motion at this time.
Make a motion that we separate section 2 for the high density residential district from the other changes so that we could vote on this portion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Broadnax Taylor.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'll now entertain a motion for approval of the aforementioned section of the ordinance.
Madam Chair, I move approval of section 2, high density residential in District R6. As presented by the economic developer.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Broadnax Taylor.
Aye.
Motion carries. Back to my agenda now. Now we are down to item number 9, which is proposed changes to zoning permit fee. Mr. Bennett.
Yeah. At the prior board meeting, we discussed amending the zoning permit fee from $20 to $50, and it was requested to table that for further discussion and analysis. So here we are. Yeah, performed an analysis. Long story short, the $20 permit fee has been relatively flat over the past few years that I'm aware of. And in order to grow our department and incorporate those technological changes, better staff, better service, and in comparison with the adjacent counties, I'm requesting that we increase that permit fee from $20 to $50. In addition to that, there are other changes which unfortunately I don't have redlined. Actually, I do. The subdivision application fee for each lot would increase from $5 to $10. The rezoning and ordinance amendment fee would decrease from $400 to $275. And the appeal of administration determinations, which coincides with the rezoning or variance application, would also be increased and would be similar or the same as the zoning variance of $275.
Board members, haven't heard the discussion in the prior meeting, haven't had an opportunity to speak with county staff or to deliberate amongst your individual self as it relates to your decision. I would entertain a motion at this time.
Make a motion to accept the fee changes as presented.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, Broadnax Taylor.
Aye.
And I normally don't vote, but oppose Faulkner. We are split. Um,
Split vote, it doesn't pass.
There's no action. Correct.
Thank you, sir. We're now, to item number 10, financial matters. Finance Director Walker.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I will.
Evening.
I will be presenting 3 items for the board's consideration on this evening, as well as the monthly spend report for the month of April. The first item that I will be presenting for your consideration is the renewal of updated contract, and that is with Davenport and Company for professional financial advisory services. Just to give a little insight, this company provides our bond financing, initial financing for new construction, refunding bonds. This is a contract that we have had with the county. You can also see the original that's behind the updated. And the difference in this contract to the prior is there is a rate increase. So it is increasing from the $35,000 retainer from $30,000. This is in the budget, and this can be found in the general fund in the contracted services line.
Madam Chair, I have a question. My question is, I'm seeing that the front page is coming from Charlotte, but the agreement says under the laws of Commonwealth of Virginia, because I'm very familiar with Davenport. They have big offices in Richmond and Charlottesville. They also have offices in North Carolina. So I'm seeing Charlotte, North Carolina on one paper, then the agreement, which was done back in 2021, I'm seeing Commonwealth of Virginia. So at that time, were y'all dealing with the people in Richmond, or what was going on then? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, that's my question.
Ms. Broadnax Taylor, these are one and the same. It's the same company.
One of the same.
Yes, this,
They incorporated that.
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
They're technically incorporated in Virginia.
Mhm.
However, they do have an office in Charlotte.
Yes, sir.
But the legality of the contract, it's just an amendment to the current existing contract.
I needed that for clarification, because I saw North Carolina on one thing, Virginia on the other, and this happened prior to my being on the board. So I needed some clarity.
Yes, ma'am.
That completes the presentation of the contract renewal.
This is proposed to start with the new fiscal year.
Yes, ma'am.
And you stated that the additional 5,000 is included under the contracted services line on general fund.
That is correct.
Board members, what's your pleasure for the contract amendment to the existing agreement with Davenport and Company LLC for financial advisory services as listed in the detail on page 2? This is 1 and 2.
So Madam Chair, I'm seeing that we are choosing option 2 where we're paying them $35,000 for a retainer fee.
Right.
Is that what we're choosing?
That's what our,
Ye-
option number 2 is going from 30 to 35.
30 to 35, $5,000 increase.
What in the world are they doing? Oh, I got it. I'm done.
Um, Finance Director Walker, will you, briefly explain the scope of services?
Yes, so they provide us with, well, there's a number of things they provide us with, but they provide us with our refinancing bonds.
Mm-hmm.
They provide us with our initial financing for any new construction. They provide us with the counseling and the strategic planning when it comes to any capital improvement projects that we're coming forward. They actually also handle our portfolio to make sure that all of our bonds, all of our loans, everything is actually in place so that we are in compliance.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I also see where they're asking for a 4% increase, an additional fee of 4%,
Mhm.
and we're giving them $35,000. And then when they come to us, we gotta pay for where they eating and where they sleeping. That's just what I read, Madam Chair, if my understanding was correct.
Talking about in section D,
Yes, ma'am.
page 8.
Yes, ma'am. It says an additional fee of 4% increase.
If I may,
This-
you can
No, go ahead.
go ahead. This does actually outline that, but of course, we know that I'm going on year 2 with the
Mhm.
county. I will say that we don't have on-site work when it comes to Davenport. We do have a really good relationship with them as far as communication. I won't say most, I'll say all of our meetings are normally remote. So as far as I know, since I've been with the county, we have not had to pay for any type of lodging or meals for them to come out. We normally do hold our meetings virtually, remote. And we touch base on a regular basis.
But it's stated here that we will be responsible for lodging and meals. And my point is, if our county's paying $35,000, at least they ought to stay on their own somewhere and spend their own money.
So has there been a discussion, because I'm seeing reasonable and necessary, who determines if it's reasonable or necessary? And is that prior approval by county staff before these expenses occur?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So, what they will do is, if there is something in that falls in that realm, and Mr. Phillips actually does, we all speak with them, but Mr. Phillips is, the main point of contact normally. Because they do have these conversations with us. Everyone's pretty much included as well as EDC. But if there is anything that warrants that someone has to come out on site, then that is something that is discussed prior, and then it's determined by Mr. Phillips if necessary.
So can that be included in this contract? That it has to be prior approved
I can
and
definitely,
and an amount?
yes, I can definitely speak with them and we can see if we can get that included. Yes, ma'am.
It can be at our reimbursement rate that we normally would do for county staff. If that can be explicitly stated, so they don't go and stay at we don't have one, but a Taj Mahal, and then
Absolutely.
you be responsible for it because we didn't set a limit.
Okay. I can definitely circle back. Thank you.
Thank you as well.
We entertain questions kind of out of order. I know my Robert's Rules of Order expert. If I would entertain a motion, and then if we want to table it until those amendments are brought before us, we could do that. Or if you want to approve pending the changes. What's your pleasure?
Madam Chairman,
Well-
do you have a
Yeah,
question?
it says reasonable and necessary direct out-of-pocket expenses. And so the 4% is not going to be incurred unless it is a conversation, which is what I'm hearing between the finance director and also the county manager. Is that correct? Because this is not saying that it's going to increase by 4%. It is saying that reasonable and necessary. And Mr. Phillips would be the determining factor of reasonable and necessary. Is that correct, Madam Chair?
I'm just not seeing who is the determinant of what's reasonable and necessary.
Right.
So if I'm Davenport, I could
Mhm.
potentially say, well, it is reasonable, we feel it's necessary. So we need to do this, whether that's the indirect expenses that they're mentioning, printing, binding, postage, incidental expenses, or if it's the out of pocket for it on site visit. If we could explicitly say it has to be approved in some way. Because in here, it just doesn't say who determines the reasonableness. That, if I think I'm making sense.
I understand, but daily operation is the county manager.
Right, and I believe that would be the best thing to do, is the county manager would be the one in this contract to say that it would be reasonable and necessary. The conversation would happen with the county manager. I just would like to see it in there that it's not the company's determination, but ours. In there, definitely.
It states that any mileage would be IRS rate, so meals and lodging. I think that would be.
Understood.
And if you're fine with it, with just that minor adjustment, that's, again, I'm entertaining a motion. That's the only thing that I had the question about.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I entertain a motion that we table the proposed updates to existing agreement to our next board meeting until information to the amendments are made within the new agreement.
For the motion, do I have a second? Do I have a second? Okay, that motion fails.
No, a second is not required.
Right.
Under your rules of procedure, you'll still need to vote even for
Right.
lack of a second.
So second is not required.
Call question. All in favor?
Aye.
I, Broadnax Taylor.
Aye.
Motion carries. We will table this to the June 3rd meeting. June 3rd is gonna be busy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Director Walker, you have additional items?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Next, I will be presenting budget amendment number 95. This is on behalf of the Sheriff's Department. And this is a revenue received in the amount of $1,736.21. This is for an insurance reimbursement. And the documentation is behind the budget amendment. Next, I have budget amendment number 96. This is also on behalf of the Sheriff's Department. Revenue received in the amount of $3,700. This is for the sale of military equipment And these funds will go to the military surplus equipment line. And the backup documentation is behind the budget amendment. That concludes the two budget amendments for your consideration this evening.
Board members, what's your pleasure for the budget amendments 95, 96? That's it, 95 and 96.
Make a motion, we accept budget amendment 95 and 96 as presented.
Second.
Motion properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
I, Broadnax Taylor.
Aye.
Any questions? Motion carries. Monthly financial
Yes,
report.
ma'am. Yes. Okay, I will now be presenting the monthly financial report for the month of April. The rule of thumb for cumulative spend was to keep expenditures below 83.3%. We have the general fund at 29.4 million at 76%. Department of Social Services, 4.7 million at 59%. The Enterprise Fund, 2.2 million at 51%. Garysburg Water and Sewer, 613,000 at 78%. And Solid Waste, 2.1 million at 75%. And that concludes the monthly spend report for April.
Board members, do you have any questions regarding the monthly financial statement? Thank you. We're down to our final part of the board meetings, our county manager comments.
Just have a couple things. Just wanted to give a update on the 5 districts. We all know that when we first started the budget process, I noted that we had to add a notation that they were still working on the 5 districts, the new 5 districts for Conway and Severn. They had a meeting and they had the data that was needed was collected on last Friday, was sent to the tax department. Tax department is telling me that they believe they will be able to have that report showing the assessed values. Reason I'm giving you all this information is because according to the general statutes, we have to notify all of the residents that are going to be impacted by the new fire district zones and the tax and so on and so forth. Now that was done at the local level at the by the towns. They put it in the papers, but according to the general statutes, we have to actually mail to every resident that's going to be impacted. So so long as they can get that information out, and I gave them a drop dead date of this Wednesday, that would give us enough time to get it back in time to get a resolution prepared and before the board to be voted on and included so that they can include that tax rate for fiscal 2025, which is very important. They've been working hard on this. So we're working in conjunction with them to make sure we can get this done. Also just a heads up, again, giving kudos to our financial department. We've been in contact with the auditors, and we're actually talking about the 2024 financial audit, getting that a jump start on that. And pleased with what I heard on today, that they'll be able to start that on next month. I've been here 2 years now, and it's always been late in the year when they're starting the audit. So this is very good news to me, and it was good news for the day. You know, when I can hear them say that they're looking forward to it, to coming out and working with us because of the work that we've put in over the last 3 audits. So again, our goal is to have this audit done on October 30th, which is in accordance with the general statutes and to make that date. And we're going to continue to work to get there. So Kenya, I want to give you big kudos once again. You and your staff, you're doing a great job. So keep your head up. Someone always tells me after church every Sunday, keep your head up. So I'm gonna tell you, keep your head up. You're doing a great job. Again, thank you for everyone that came out on tonight. Do appreciate your comments. And look forward to seeing you on the next go around. Thank you.
Commissioner Bartnext Taylor.
Just like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I'd like to also share, I'd like to thank the Relay of Life was fabulous on Friday night at the Northampton County Cultural Wellness Center. Miss Laquita Green Cooper did a fabulous job in coordinating and implementing such an event, such a fundraiser. It was fabulous. And after all that fabulousness, on Saturday, I got a chance to attend the 75th anniversary celebration of Gaston. And that was fabulous. It was fantastic. They had a beautiful program. They had a ribbon cutting. Congressman Don Davis came out. The citizens were just on fire. And I told Gaston, they always set the bar so high for community engagement activities. And it was a fabulous event. So there were a lot of great things happening in Northampton County, North Carolina this weekend. And thank everybody for coming to that and supporting. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for your comments. Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Echo the comments of Commissioner Bartnext Taylor. And also, when you look at what's happening in the month of May, it's graduation time. And we definitely want to say kudos to the class of 2024 and every high school graduate, whether it's at Northampton County Early College, Northampton County High School, Northeast Academy, and anyone graduating high school. Also had the pleasure of attending the Halifax Community College graduation. And we saw students from Northampton County Early College not earning one degree, associate's degree, not earning 2 associate's degrees, but some of our children earned 3 associate's degrees in one single day. It takes a special student to do that. And when you look at the community college concept, these students are graduating with associate's degrees even before they receive their high school diploma. So kudos to the Northampton County Early College and all class of 2024 graduates as they embark on the next mission of their life, whether it's to enlist, enroll, or go ahead and be employed. Second component I do want to say is that when you look at the month of June, as it relates to activities that are occurring, in the month of May, we had Mother's Day. Now, don't forget Father's Day is coming as well. All right. And those are my comments. And again, kudos to everyone. And I was not able to attend the last meeting. And I do want to share that we lost the icon in Northampton County and Mrs. Lucy Edwards. These are my personal comments. And so that's why I'm using this time to say that now, just like losing a personal friend, a comrade, and a colleague, not only impacted Northampton County, but the state and the national level as well. So continued prayers to the Edwards Moody family as they move on in their journey. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards.
I do have one other comment. I'm sorry. And so Lake Gaston, I do want to say to the commission board that we have gone to the Lake Gaston Community Center with their approval, and we would like to come back to give another update in the month of June. There was a lot going on, and we stated that we would come back as a commission board to update as needed, and I will seek counsel with the Lake Gaston Community Center for an invitation to come back in the month of June. Amen.
Commissioner Martin.
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and appreciate your comments on the solar farms. I'm not a
Yes,
fan of them myself. We will look at that.
definitely.
I'll end saying the same thing. Thank you all for coming. When we knew we had the public hearing, and anytime you deal with things that are close to home, you know that it's going to be a passionate exchange. That's why there was no timer. We wanted you to be able to say what you had to say so that we can hear you. Because we do care and we do want to hear you. So thank you for your thoughtfulness and your suggestions on things for us to look at deeper. It did not fall on deaf ears. I also would like to congratulate the students who attend the Northampton County Career and Technical Academy. They are not early college students, but 16 of those students graduated from Roanoke Chowan Community College with certificates as well. So those are students who may not have been on the associate's degree route, but they were in the traditional high school and chose to take college level classes so that their employment possibilities were even greater. So we would like to also congratulate those students. Or in any other needs for comments from the floor, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move adjourned, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
all in favor?
Aye.
I, Brian Taylor.